MakingAScene.org brings you streaming growth is slowing, and that's good news for indie artists.
All right, let's just jump right into this. For what, the last decade or so, the dream for indie artists has been pretty straightforward, right? Get your music on Spotify, get those stream counts climbing, and success. But as so many of us have found out, that dream, well, it's got a pretty big catch. And that's what we're digging into today. Because as MakingAScene.org puts it, streaming can get you in front of a ton of people, but on its own, it's just not going to build you a stable living.
So yeah, we're definitely in a new phase. That whole growth at all costs mindset is pretty much over. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll talk about this new era for streaming, then we'll get into the more streams trap and why you need to avoid it. After that, we'll look at why it's all about value, not volume. Then we'll cover the assets you absolutely have to own. And finally, we'll wrap up with how to build smarter systems for your music career.
Okay, first up, a new era for streaming. The big question is, what's really driving this change? Well, let's zoom out and look at the big picture for a second. Because the entire streaming industry is, well, it's changing its goals.
You know, the big platforms have kind of hit a wall. In a lot of places, pretty much everyone who is going to sign up for a streaming subscription already has. So the game isn't about finding new people anymore. Nope. Now it's all about how to get more money from the people who are already there. And you can see this super clearly in the data right here. Just look at the difference. Paid subscriptions, they're growing at a healthy 9.5%. But ad-supported streaming, it's barely moving at just 1.2%. That huge gap, that tells you everything you need to know about where things are going.
And what that means is the questions these platforms are asking have totally flipped. It used to be all about growth. How do we get more people? How do we expand? Now it's all about profit. How do we get more from the people we have? How do we keep them from leaving? This is exactly why you're seeing prices go up and all these new subscription tiers pop up. And look, as an artist, this is critical. When the platforms change their game plan, you've got to change yours too.
All right, section 2, this whole industry shift, well, it leads a lot of artists straight into what we're calling the more streams trap. It's this idea that just getting more and more plays is the only way to win.
So your first instinct, and it's a totally natural one, is to ask this. You see the platforms trying to make more money and you think, okay, simple, I just need a bigger slice of that pie, I need more streams. But, and this is the key point from MakingAScene.org, that is completely the wrong question to be asking.
So, why is this a trap? Well, there are 3 big reasons. First off, the payouts per stream are, let's be honest, they're tiny, and they don't just go up because Spotify decides to charge people more. Second, and this is huge, you're building your entire audience on rented land. You might have thousands of listeners, but you have zero direct connection to them. You can't just send them an email about your next show. And third, any success you find is just so unpredictable. You get a big playlist ad, your numbers spike, and then poof, it's gone the next week. You just can't build a real stable career on that kind of luck. So if how do I get more streams is the wrong question, what's the right one? It's this. How do I turn all this attention I'm getting from streaming into real relationships and, income that I actually control? And that's our next section. This is where we make that big shift from focusing on volume to focusing on value. Okay, let's just look at the numbers here, because this really shows how powerful this mindset shift is. Let's imagine 2 paths for an artist. Path 1 is the streaming treadmill. You have a great year. You hit 500,000 streams. Awesome, right? Well, that might gross you about $2,000, and that's before you split it with anyone else. Now look at path 2, the middle class model. Here, your goal is to find 1,000 true fans. If each of those fans spends just $60 a year directly with you, buys a t-shirt, a ticket, some vinyl, that's $60,000. The difference is just staggering.
And really, this is the core idea right here. Think of streaming as your front door. It's an amazing way for people to discover you. But if you don't have a house for them to come into, a system to actually build a relationship, you're leaving all the real value on the table. The treadmill gives you a bunch of numbers. The middle-class model, that gives you real, actual stability. So the big question is, how do you actually build that system? Well, according to MakingAScene.org, it all comes down to 3 foundational things. 3 owned assets that are the bedrock of your independent business. I want you to forget about chasing algorithms for just a minute. These 3 things are what really matter. They're the pillars that let you turn a passive listener into part of a career that you actually have control over. So what are they? A contact list, a direct checkout, and a fan identity system. Okay, number 1, your contact list. I know, it's not sexy.
but it is the most powerful and simple piece of leverage you have. It's the difference between just screaming into the social media void and hoping someone hears you versus having a direct, reliable phone line to your biggest fans. And the first step is super simple. Just create one sign-up form and give people a good reason to join. Maybe it's early access to tickets or a free download, something.
Second, you need a direct checkout. I mean, streaming is great for listening, but it's a terrible way for a fan to actually give you money in a meaningful way. You have to have an obvious place for people to support you directly. This could be Bandcamp, Shopify, whatever tool works for you. The point is to create a super clear path for a fan to go from, I like this song, to actually buying something from you, putting money in your pocket.
And number 3 is a fan identity system. This sounds complicated, but it's really just about creating a sense of belonging. Because when people feel like they belong to something, they stick around. Think about it. When a fan feels like they're part of your inner circle, maybe through a Patreon or a private Discord, they stop being just a listener. They become an advocate. They're the ones who show up, who buy the merch, who are with you for the long haul.
Okay, last section here. Once you have these 3 core assets locked in, then you can start using all the other tools out there way more effectively to actually support your business.
Let's talk about something like AI, for instance. A lot of people get nervous about it, but it's not here to replace your creativity. For a working artist, the real power of AI is just removing the annoying friction from the business side of things. You can use it to crunch your sales data and figure out which cities have the most fans, or which t-shirt is selling the best. You can even use it to help draft your fan emails, saving you a ton of time.
And this data-first approach completely changes how you think about other stuff too, like touring. A smart touring strategy isn't just, throwing darts at a map and hoping for the best. No way. It's about looking at the data you already have, your email list, your store sales, your ticket buyer history, and going to the places where you already have a fan base waiting for you.
So here's the bottom line. This whole model, it just flips the old way of thinking on its head. A real sustainable career, what we're calling the music industry middle class, it's not built on chasing some viral hit and hoping a massive anonymous crowd finds you. It's built on a solid foundation of repeat support from a dedicated fan base, people you actually know and have a relationship with.
The first era of streaming taught artists to chase big numbers before they had any stability. This next era, it's going to reward the artists who build that stability first and then scale it up. So I'll just leave you with this question. Streaming is a great front door, no doubt about it. But are you ready to stop just renting space and start actually building your own house? Make sure you check out the other great articles and resources on makingascene.org, the place the indie artist goes to build the new music industry.